I remember it like yesterday when Matt came down the stairs and said so casually with a smile, I booked a one-way ticket to Santiago, Chile. I thought to myself, is this real? Can we really leave our amazing careers, friends, and family? Fast forward 10 months later, after all the hard conversations, endless checklists, and heartfelt goodbyes, we were heading to the airport with one backpack each, about to set out for a multi-year adventure around the world. Filled with excitement, we had no idea what to expect, but we knew it would be a fun ride. Join us as we share what we are learning on our journey of a lifetime. This is Passport Joy Travel Talk with Nikki and Matt Javits.
Yes. Hope you're having a great day wherever you're listening to us from. Thank you for tuning in. This is going to be a fun episode. We are talking about Vietnam and why we love it so much, and just getting into all the parts in different parts of the country, the different cities, and everything the city has to offer, that we just fell in love with it. We've been there twice now, once for 4 weeks, once for 2 weeks. So we're going to dive into that in a long form way. And then we're also going to answer a couple of questions, listener questions, about whether or not Nikki will write a book. We'll find that out. And then also bad locations that we have stumbled upon on our travel. So tune in. I hope you love this episode. As always, please connect with us on the social, whether Instagram or Facebook, and subscribe to the podcast when you have a chance. And as you know, the contest is over. We'll start to announce some of the prize winners of the contest, but the reviews help us tremendously. It helps us get in front of new potential travel listeners, and also it just helps us overall from a branding and a podcast format standpoint. So please do those reviews when you have a chance. And the show notes also, people have been asking, what are the show notes? It's essentially when you go to the website, we've broken down all the information that we're sharing on the podcast into easy to click links. So you go to the show notes and it's kind of like an overview or a cheat sheet for all the stuff that we talk about. Then you can just click on that and it'll take you to different parts of the internet that has more information on the things that we're mentioning. So please visit the show notes at passportjoy.com. And while you're there, sign up for the newsletter. Please sign up for the newsletter. I send out an email every week that kind of tells you where we're going, what we've been doing, cool stuff we're seeing, and shares more insight on our travels than you get on the podcast and whatnot. So it's a lot to do, but please do it. And we really appreciate it. Enjoy this episode. Xin chào. That's hello in Vietnamese. We're going to talk about Vietnam today. We have so much fallen in love with this country. And we didn't have any expectations at all when we first decided to travel there for a month. We just heard about how great it was from other travelers, the beautiful beaches, very cost-friendly, tourist-friendly. And when we went there, that's absolutely what we found. A lot of people might not consider Vietnam a great travel destination right off the bat. It is a communist country. Their history, obviously, with the wars, seems to linger in people's minds. There's a lot of unknowns about the culture and what to expect. And quite honestly, there's other places in Southeast Asia that probably hit people's radar before Vietnam if they're considering to make that the 24-hour trek it takes to get there from the United States, Thailand, Bali, some of the places like that people typically go to, or Singapore, Hong Kong maybe. But Vietnam absolutely should be if you've got a travel bucket list, or if there's places that you want to go, it should definitely be near the top of it, because it is amazing. We found so many great things about it. And from the standpoint of their future, it seems to be extremely bright because of the investment that they're putting into their infrastructure, and they're building these tremendous condos and hotels in all parts of the country. We'll get into different places that we visited, but the growth is unbelievable. And the strength of their infrastructure, great Wi-Fi, travel friendly, great hospitality, and just their you can tell that their people are understanding that they have an opportunity on hand, whether it's from other Asians traveling there a bunch, or now that Westerners are starting to tap into it, that they're taking their hospitality they're taking it a focus that we haven't really seen in other places as well. Their English isn't as polished as you would find in other countries, but it is very good, and they know how to communicate well with the travelers. So yeah, that's kind of the highlights for me on why at a high level why we loved it so much. Transportation as well. But I'll let Nikki get into why she loved it.
So in addition to some of the things that Matt had mentioned on why he loves Vietnam, I loved it for those reasons as well. But the people are just extremely welcoming and really nice. The cafe and coffee culture in Vietnam is something that's really hard to explain. So there's a lot of cafes everywhere. And when you go there, they have what I'll explain later, but this Vietnamese coffee, and it's just so good. And their coffee culture as well is just, it's out of this world. The way they make it, you can go into a cafe and sit there for hours, and their Wi-Fi is, like Matt had mentioned, it's super fast, and no one stares at you, or what I felt, no one stares at you when you sit there for hours and work on whatever you need to work on, and you don't feel like you're being judged for sitting there for hours. So I really, really appreciated that and enjoyed that. Another thing is that on every street corner, you really just feel like an incredible sense of energy, whether it be from just motorbikes or scooters that you see zipping on by, or you just see the vendors, the local vendors selling their food, the street food that they have, or just their goods that they have made. They're selling that on the corners. And then markets that you see, people selling fresh fruits and breads and goods. They also have really good medical care. I had the opportunity, I had a tooth that I had to get a filling fixed. And I went there and I got a filling for, it was like less than $15 US. So that was awesome. And then there's just a lot of good opportunities for outdoor adventures, whether it's, like Matt had mentioned, amazing beaches that you can go to and just stroll on the beach, lay out, or swim. And then there's hiking. You can motorbike along the coast, and pagodas that you can go and visit, or you can just go and take some day trips, and whether it be on a motorbike, or maybe you can go to a different destination and it's maybe a 45-minute getaway for you. There's a lot of good surfing opportunities because the surfing and the waves there are not as gnarly as they are as some of the other places that we've been. And the water is quite warm, so it's nice. You might not need to get a wetsuit, and it's just a good opportunity for that. But yeah, that's just some of the things that we really loved about it. But one of my main obsessions is their food. We ate so much pho, and it's spelled PHO, but it's pronounced pho. And it's this like soup or this broth that you can get several ways. But for people who eat meat, it's this thinly sliced meat that you can order, whether it be beef or you can get fish, you can get lamb, but we order it the vegetarian way, and it's spelled CHAY, but you pronounce it like chai, like a chai tea. So we just order like pho chai, and it's so good. They give you your base broth, and you can ask it for the vegetarian way that we do. And then it just comes with goodness of vegetables. I don't know, bean sprouts and chilies and limes to sweeten it. And then obviously the chilies to add some heat if you like it spicy. And then those bean sprouts add some crunch for it. And then on the side, it's accompanied with like salt and pepper, just as like your flavor boosters. And then they have these mint leaves as well that you can add for some flavor, an additional flavor if you like that. And then I always like to ask for some ginger, and that adds some additional taste. But we probably ate this pho, I don't know, probably 2 times a day. I don't know. Yeah. While we were there, it's so good. And then another thing that we really enjoy are these sandwiches. They're called banh mi. And again, most people who eat meat probably, get the chicken or the beef version, but we ordered the vegetarian version of it. And again, you just ask for a banh mi chai, and
but it's not easy to find.
It's not easy to find, but you can always just tell them just to take the meat off. But essentially what it is it's just like a variation of the American sub sandwich. And it's like this crusty, brittle baguette bread, and it's made from rice and wheat flour.
Usually you can find it, some restaurants will have it, but typically you'll see a person making it at like a little cart or stand outside. And like I said, there's various meats that go in it, pork, ham, beef, whatever. Sometimes they'll have these little spreads or pâtés, but they put like a mayonnaise on it, or in our case, I just hold the mayo, and we put like hot sauce, and then they just load it up with these fresh vegetables like sliced cucumbers and tomatoes. And they have this stuff like, it's called sour pickled daikon, and it's these carrots that are pickled, and it is so good. I've never had it anywhere else. And they put fresh chilies, and then they stuff it in this baguette. It's like nothing I've ever had before. And we were in Nha Trang, and Matt found this. I don't know how he found it. I think he found it on TripAdvisor from some reviews that he had read online. And he had heard that this lady had the best banh mi chais in Nha Trang. And so every day we would try to find where her cart was located. And he saw like where it was based on a picture that someone had taken and placed on this review. And we tried to find it, but we could not find her. And Matt's like, I think this woman is on vacation or something. So for like 2 days we would go and try to find her cart, and we were never able to find it for those 2 days. But on the third day, we finally found her, and her banh mi chais were so good that we proceeded to eat it for like lunch and dinner for the next 3 days that we were there. And it was just absolutely delicious. But yeah, those are so good. So yeah, we really like those. And then another really good option for food in Vietnam that they have are these things called hot pots. And I don't know the Vietnamese word for it, but what it is this really cool concept of being able to cook your own food, like right at the table. So again, they bring you out this pot of hot broth, and it's like of herbs and spices, and it kind of just simmers at your table while you're sitting there. Yeah,
Flame in front of you. There's an open flame in front of you at the table, so it makes it a cool experience where you're doing the work, but they bring all the goods to make it happen.
Yeah. And so you can order like individually what you would like in your hot pot. So you pick your base soup of what you want, and you can order it based on the intensity of heat or the type of broth that you want. So you can have like a pork broth or a chicken-based broth or a beef-based broth, or get it vegan or vegetarian. And then Matt likes this Szechuan broth, which he posted this picture on Instagram that you can see. And literally it is just like a broth full of chilies. I don't even know how he does it. It's super intense and super hot. But yeah, they bring out that pot of soup, and it just will simmer on sort of like a hot plate in a pot at your table. And then you order the accompanying sides that you would like, which are raw. Those sides are then brought to your table raw. And you then take your chopsticks and put them in this simmering pot of broth at your table and watch it cook. And then you just take it out and eat it in a little side bowl. And then you have this little mini bowl of soup that you can eat. And then each individual can have their own pot of broth, or you can share it and order it as large as you want, depending on how many people you're having dinner with. So things like lemongrass or bok choy, mushrooms, cabbage, like bamboo shoots, spinach, broccoli, and noodles, like for a vegetarian, can be put in there. And then like you can order chicken and beef, like shrimp, squid, you name it, you can put it in there. And then you just slow cook it and then enjoy your meal and cook it with your friends as you eat it. And it's a really cool concept. And I'd never done anything like that before. And I guess it would be similar to what we have in America, like a fondue, where they bring out, your food and then you dip it in like cheese or something. But this is like a soup. And we really, really enjoyed that. And another thing similar to that we kind of did was these Vietnamese barbecues, where without the broth, you have an open grill flame at your table, and it's legitimately hot coals. And then they have these hot coals inside, I don't even know what it is, this contraption. And then over this contraption is like a little mini grill.
Almost like a clay pot.
It's like a clay pot, and in the clay pot are these coals that are burning, and you can see the flame. And then over that clay pot is like a grill.
But it's mini.
But it's very tiny. I don't know how tiny it is, but
it's the size of a volleyball or something.
Like the size of a volleyball. And then they bring out raw meat, raw fish, frog legs. We've seen frog legs. They have snake. I mean, it's meats, lambs, you name it. And then you can take those strips of meat and then you cook them at your table. And it's just a really unique experience for people just to get together around a table and, have conversation and like cook food. And again, I mean, if you're a vegetarian, there's really nothing that you can cook, but you do have options that you can order and eat. Like I ordered tofu, and you can have vegetables that they'll bring you tableside, and you could still watch everyone cook, which is nice, and still enjoy in that conversation. But those are just some really unique things that we were able to do while we were here. And I just thought it was the uniqueness of it all that I'd never experienced anywhere else before.
Yeah, and it's cool because they make it a true cultural experience. Like even we had the opportunity to go to a wide range of restaurant types, from street foodie, small places on the side of the road, to a more, I guess, deluxe atmosphere. And all of them, they make you feel like it's a great cultural experience. Because we've been places where it gets, there's an element of fakeness towards tourists, where they try to make it seem authentic, but it's not real, and you know that they're kind of faking it to make you feel a certain way, because they know you're from an outside culture. But in Vietnam, it always felt true and always felt real, that you were participating in what they would do on a regular basis. So, and that's always a neat part of traveling, is you want to feel that every time you go out to eat, because you don't want to just feel like you're going to you don't want to go like a name brand chain restaurant that just happens to be in a different country. So that's always neat. And I think that's most of and the coffee is unbelievable there. We're big coffee fans and tea drinkers, and it's the Vietnamese coffee. I had both the weasel. You can get this weasel stuff that's just crazy. It's pretty gross, but essentially the weasel eats the coffee, then he poops it out, and they take that and they make the enzymes in the weasels. But it sounds disgusting, but I had to try it because it's a really big thing there. And actually it did taste good. It was good. I had that for probably about a bag of it so I probably used that for about 7 to 10 days as we traveled. But the coffee itself and how they make it is very strong, very potent. So it does give you a different level of coffee, caffeine buzz, if that's what you're looking for. But it was a great experience. And I joke with Nikki all the time, because she's so skinny and so tiny, but she just has such a passion for food and describing food and talking about it, and just having these awesome experiences as we go. So even though she's vegan, we can still participate, and she doesn't mind if I get into some crazy food as we go as well.
Yeah, I did want to describe the difference between American and Vietnamese coffee. So the Vietnamese coffee is made by a slow filter drip process, and they take coarsely ground coffee beans and they place it into like a drip filter, and it's called a fin, and it sits on top of this empty cup. And then the coffee beans are weighted down by a thin lid, and then hot water is added to the fin, and then it slowly drips through the empty cup. And then you just get this, like, really, like Matt said, this intense coffee brew that can be just like enjoyed by itself, what we would call a black coffee. But typically the Vietnamese enjoy their coffee by adding that black coffee that's left over. They add condensed milk, and then they pour that over ice. So 9 times out of 10, when you order a Vietnamese coffee, you're going to get that served cold. So if you don't want that served cold, you just tell them you want it warm. But yeah, it's really, really, really intense. And the amount of coffee that you get is very tiny because it's so strong. But it's really, really good. It's almost the equivalent to having like a shot of espresso. But I personally feel like it's stronger than that. But it's something that you should try once in your lifetime if you're a coffee drinker. It's really, really good.
Cool. And then I guess, and then the other thing that we failed to mention early on is the safety and security in Vietnam that we felt. I mean, not all the time. Sometimes you can be in a safe environment but not feel it, or you can feel safe and it's actually criminal ridden. So, but Vietnam, we felt safe. We never heard of anybody having any incidences, and it came across as being a place where We felt like we could go around at night and not have to worry about things. And we never had creepers looking at us or just awkward situations. It always felt good. So transitioning. So we spent time in several different cities. We're just going to give the high level of each city. We don't want to get into details of each, but at a high level, because everybody has their different tastes on where they want to go. Us having a full month to tour the country. So we went there for 1 month in the beginning, and then we ended up going back for another 2 weeks. So we've spent 6 weeks in Vietnam so far. And the way we did the first month is we started at the north and we kind of worked our way down and hit all the cities that we thought, based on our reviews, that we thought we'd enjoy. And then we went back. We ended up meeting a friend in Saigon, also known as Chi Minh City. And we doubled back to a city that we enjoyed the first time. So the first, we started in Hanoi, which is a historic city in northern Vietnam. And I guess at a high level, it has a great city vibe, a huge scooter culture. So I would post photos on Instagram and some videos and stuff, but the scooter culture is really nothing like we've seen, because there's a lot of places that have a lot of scooters, but they still have a lot of cars on the road. But in Vietnam, we just felt like the scooters dominate the roads. I mean, there's scooters everywhere, and the cars kind of try to figure out how they fit in with it. And in Hanoi, you really feel that, because it's like a big city, but it has all these scooters everywhere, and it just feels fun and kind of compact but nice. And there's different segments of Hanoi that really show the history of the city, but they have the great marketplaces, small places to go shopping. And it was a fun place. It's a great entry point into Vietnam, because it's not overwhelming, but you just get a sense of what it's really like. I had a chance to go to a co-work a couple of days and just really walk through the city and understand it. And then there's different divisions. If you do your research, there's different divisions of the city that are more expat. There's a lot of expats that live there, based on a lot of stuff that we're going to describe to you on this podcast, and why it makes sense to live there if you can. But yeah, that was a great entry point for us. And we really enjoyed it, and we took advantage. We ended up meeting some new friends there, and it was had some nice dinners out, but it was enjoyable. And then from there you go. It's an easy trip over to Ha Long Bay, which is known for the beautiful rocks. I guess the best way to describe it is these massive limestone. Nikki will probably be better explaining this than I will.
Yeah, so Ha Long Bay is an area, it's similar to like the Phi Phi Islands in Thailand, and there's well over 1,600 of these limestone islets, and they kind of like rise out of the ocean, and on the top of them there's this like lush green vegetation, and then the rest of them is made out of limestone, and it's just magnificent. But if you've ever been to the Phi Phi Islands, these structures that rise out of the ocean, they are large, but in Ha Long Bay, these structures are larger. It's just in Ha Long Bay, it's just on a much grander scale. I don't know how to describe it, but there's far more of them, and they are much larger than what you would see in the Phi Phi Islands. They're as far as your eye can see, and they're everywhere. And so when you go to Ha Long Bay, you can either go and take like day cruises and just kind of cruise around for the day and do it with a group of people. There are private tours that you can take, which typically are very expensive, or you can do cruises that last a couple of days where you do like overnights, and you sleep on like a similar thing to like a Royal Caribbean cruise, where you would sleep overnight and wake up the next day, and you kind of get to do that kind of experience where you would sleep and then eat on the ship that you have, or the ship that you stay. But we did just like a day cruise with a group of people and kind of went in between these structures. We docked at a couple places, and then when we docked at the places, then you could get off and get in these canoes with people that would take you in and out of these coves, these beautiful coves. Then you could really see and go around these structures, and it was just magnificent.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun there. And then Ha Long Bay has its own little nightlife as well. And the growth there was unbelievable. And with some of we talked to a couple of either Uber or taxi drivers there, but they were talking about how in the next 3 to 5 years, the growth within Ha Long Bay is going to be magnificent, because they're building all these condos. I think they had like casinos. They've got this water park for kids. It's like they had like their own Six Flags type amusement park being built. It was crazy. And we saw this in several other cities as well. The growth and the investment in this country is unbelievable. So from there we transitioned down. We hit one city for a minute, and then we went down to just to fly out. Forget the name of that place, and then we end up in Da Nang. And from Da Nang, we fell in love with Da Nang. It's a coastal city, gorgeous beach, gorgeous clean beach, crashing waves. The scooters, you could take the scooters around town without having the intimidation of a massive city, because it is the fourth largest, third or fourth, depending on the stat you see, the third or fourth largest city in the country. So it's large enough. I think 1.5 million or so is what they put it at. So they've got the Lady Buddha you can go visit, which is this magnificent statue. It's the largest Buddha statue in the country. And then they have a Marble Mountain that is a kind of the lost ruin place where you can go see some of these old artifacts and Buddhist temples. And then you can just drive around the city on these scooters and feel pretty safe about it and comfortable, and then spend your days on the beach if you want to. And then the nightlife was kind of relaxed, and like you would feel like it, like a Key Westy, like just a cool kind of slow beach vibe, but great food and great cultural experiences. And they're definitely working hard in Da Nang to have a better hospitality. So people are speaking English as best they can, and then they're building like crazy. So the growth there as well was, I mean, it's just, for us, it's like anxious to see like, what is this going to be like in 5 or 10 years? Because I had the opportunity to live in Las Vegas in 06 and 07 and saw all those condos go up, and it felt similar to that, but even kind of more, as many condos that are going up there. So we loved Da Nang. At that time, we only spent 2 or 3 days there. I think it was 3 days. And then we transitioned over to Hoi An, which is kind of this romantic, magical, smaller town on the coastal area that's got these lanterns, and you can take these cruises on the canal, and great shopping, great little small shopping marts, and you can get great bargains there, and a lot of different types of food. But Nikki and I felt like it was extremely touristy, and we felt like 1 or 2 days would be good there. We ended up booking, I think, 3 or 4 days because we didn't know. And the last couple of days, we took it all in, but it just didn't feel like a place where you'd want to spend a great amount of time at. We felt like we would have been better off if we would have stayed in Da Nang longer and had Hoi An be just more like a quick stop. So, and then we ended up going to Nha Trang, which was is also a coastal city. So you guys know, we love the coast. We love hearing waves. We like being on the beach, being close to the sun. We don't lay out every day or anything like that, but we just there's just something that draws us to the ocean. So Nha Trang was one of those places that also had that, but a much more nightlife-y city vibe. It was faster paced and vibing, and yeah, it was much more expensive, probably twice as expensive as Da Nang, but with similar options. But what was interesting is that there's a lot of Russians that vacation there, because what we found was there's a direct flight from Russia into Nha Trang. So what's funny was they thought, the locals thought I was Russian, obviously, because there's so many Russians there, and they tend to cater towards Russians that travel there. So that was interesting to meet folks on the road, and you could hear the accents on the road. But that town was amazing, and it was totally different than we just experienced in Da Nang. We never got on a scooter there. We were everywhere on foot, and because everything would seem very close, we did put in a lot of miles because we did walk some long distances there.
I did want to mention one thing about the beaches of both Da Nang and Nha Trang. The beaches are so pristine and clean. So you'll see like the city workers, they are going around during the day, and they have these like big, huge bags or sacks, and they go around and they collect debris, like any debris that you see. It could be driftwood, trash, if there is any trash, seaweed, you name it, like little twigs, and they collect it and they put it in these bags and they drag it away. And so when you see the beach, all you see is white sand. There's like not a twig in sight, not a pebble in sight. And so the beaches of both Da Nang and Nha Trang are just plush sand. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. It reminded me, honestly, of Siesta Key in Florida in the United States. It was just like powdered white sand. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. And the other thing that we noticed as well is, because I guess one of the positives of a communist nation and the way that the government takes care of their people. There's no bums. There didn't seem to be any seediness. Everybody it seemed like had proper jobs. It was a really cool experience from that regard. And then, so from Nha Trang, we transitioned to Ho Chi Minh City, where massive, multicultural, top tier global city in the world, where you've got diverse food options, unbelievable shopping and world-class shopping there with boutiques and markets, bars, nightclubs. There's the Notre Dame Cathedral that's under construction, but it's a big draw in the city. We actually had a chance to go to Mass there on Good Friday, which was really nice. And then their central post office is also a big draw for reasons I'm not totally sure of, but it's pretty cool. It's a big post office, is really nice. And then there's beautiful parks that we had a chance to visit, multiple parks. Independence Palace is big. And then the market, the Benton market, is where you have bargains, and it's just a fun place. I mean, they have all kinds of different food selections, clothing, jewelry, really everything, shoes, and they cater. It's very touristy. They're trying to sell you everything, but it still has a good vibe, especially with the food there that you could buy to have lunch or whatever. There's a cool element to it because it's still very culturally, it seemed like is authentic, but it gets kind of touristy in pockets, which is nice because you can pick up your souvenirs and do whatever you want to do, and you can bargain a little bit and walk out with some good deals. And then the Heineken tour at the Saigon Skyplex in downtown Ho Chi Minh City is really cool too. It gives you an awesome view of the city, and if you're in a situation where you can go to that, it's only like $2 more to do the Heineken tour rather than just do the regular tour, because with the Heineken tour, you get to go to the 49th floor and see everything that you would on the regular tour. Then they take you up to the Heineken tour and you get a proper walkthrough. It's really a marketing thing where they're just trying to get their brand out there and give you the background of the history of Heineken. But then there's some cool stuff. We put on like some virtual 3D goggles, and then it turns into like a little party where they give you free drinks and you get to talk to the people that are on the tour with you. And it was pretty neat. So for the extra $2, it was worth it. And it turned into a really cool, ours was longer than it needed to be because we had to wait, but it ended up being like a 2-hour deal where it should be, in reality, it should be about a 45-minute deal for you if you're doing it right. So, but yeah, so we loved Ho Chi Minh City. The other thing that was neat about our trip, multiple trips to there, was I found that they had poker. And just to keep it brief, that they have poker is kind of new in Vietnam as far as being allowed for locals and tourists to do. And there's only, what I was told, I got to talk to a local that was actually a pro. He played in a lot of Southeast Asian tournaments, and you could tell he made his money playing poker, is that there's only about 4 or 5 rooms in the country at the time I was there that catered to poker. And I happened to fall into 3 of them. One was in Nha Trang, had a cash game that was right there where we are. So you essentially buy into a cash game, and each night starting at about 9:00, they would get only one table of cash game players. So that was extremely interesting for me, and it was a lot of fun because I love to play poker, and it's something it's one of those things I miss doing with my buddies back home. And then I got a chance to play in poker tournaments in both Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City. And by the way, so Saigon, the people of the South call it Saigon. And the world calls it Ho Chi Minh City because it was renamed at one point. But when you're talking to locals, either that used to live there or still live there, they call it Saigon. So that's why you'll hear people talk about Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City. It's the same city. It's just how they talk about it based on the wars that they went through in order to change the city name. So I played in a poker tournament both in Saigon and in Da Nang. And then when we went back a second time, I got to play in a couple tournaments around my birthday time in Da Nang as well. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, they set up just like any poker tournament. It's Texas Hold'em, and the people were nice, a little bit more intense than I expected. And the only drawback was they spoke Vietnamese almost all the time. So I didn't really have the interaction, but at the same time, it gave me a sense of, hey, this is, because there's so many great poker players that come from Asia that are in America. And it gave me a sense of all those stories that I read, that with these guys that would come to America with only a few bucks to their name and then turn that into millions. And because they didn't even speak the language, they have to sit at the tables and just learn how to read body language. It took me back to that because I was like, I don't understand anything these people are saying, but we're just playing cards and all the rules are the same. So that was a pretty cool experience and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, so overall, I'm sure we'll be back to Vietnam. I'd probably say 100% sure that we'll be back to Vietnam, and because we loved it so much, and there's so many positives to our experience.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one comment. So Matt had said that something about the Central Post Office, and it's super popular because it was designed by Gustave Eiffel, and that was the designer of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. And it's still functioning to this day. Like, everyone mails their letters out of that post office. So that's why it's really popular and people go there and take pictures of its interior.
Cool. Thanks, babe. Forgot about that. All right. That is it. If you have any other questions, we have a couple, at least 2 or 3 blogs on this on our passportjoy.com. So please go there, check that out. We'll have additional information in the show notes and links to a lot of the things that we mentioned today. And so you can click on those and go there and find out anything else you want to know. And then please put comments. If you have any questions or comments, we've answered a bunch. We've had a few friends that have now visited Vietnam, or they're going to be visiting Vietnam based on the fact that we know how awesome it is. And the one thing we probably didn't reiterate enough is how cheap it is. It is so cheap there. And I'm kind of excited that we didn't start with that and we didn't talk about it a lot, because as we travel a lot, we've had the opportunity to travel a lot. You don't want to always think about cost first, because at the end of the day, your time is so much more valuable, hopefully, than the money. And yes, we do have a budget. We're doing this in the smartest way possible, but the cost, it's an extra bonus when you're either you're getting a meal for $1, or our room in Da Nang was $10 a day, and it was awesome. And you can be all in. We met a gentleman there from the States that he would stay there for a month or two, and he would stay for $700 or $800 a month. And that's all in. And you would live like a king for $700, $800 a month. Yeah, you got to fly there and get there. But once you're set there, you can really do it big and feel great and have all the luxuries of home at a cheap price. So I can't believe we didn't mention it until the end, but it is a bonus and it's a great thing. Yeah, scooters. We talked about the scooter life. You can rent a scooter for $5 a day, and there's so many scooter rental places. If you bargain correctly, you probably get it cheaper than that. So obviously we love Vietnam, and if you have any questions, let us know. And if it's a place you're considering, highly suggest considering it and make it a great trip. As always, safe travels.
We love using our Blink monitoring system while traveling the world. It's very easy to set up the system before leaving your hotel, your hostel, or your Airbnb where you're staying. We've packed one security camera for our travels. And it's really important for us to know if anyone has been in our room for the obvious reasons, but also so we just don't accuse anyone of stealing, in case we just simply misplace something. So once you leave your room, you arm the device using the Blink mobile app. It's very, very easy. And when someone moves in front of the camera sensors, it activates immediately while a bright light sends a video to your phone. We also love our Blink monitoring system to look into our home, where we have 3 cameras set up, and the app will alert us to any activity that goes on while we're away. So get your Blink monitor today to feel safe while you travel and to monitor your home remotely. It's super easy to set up, it's cost-friendly, battery operated, and the Blink app can be accessed from more than one device, and you can also have up to 10 cameras on each security system, and there is no monthly fee. So check out passportjoy.com/blink. Again, passportjoy.com/blink to watch the ease of use and how we set up our Blink security camera system as we travel the world. Another thing we use is called Priority Pass, and we absolutely love our Priority Pass. It's just a great way for frequent travelers to gain access to airport lounges around the world. And our airport experiences have been so much more enjoyable, so we can just spend time, unwind, and relax in a priority lounge right before our flight. And the lounges are quiet. They're connected spaces where you can work or even take a quick nap and get a bite to eat. A lot of these lounges have complimentary food and beverages, alcohol, and Wi-Fi in most of the lounges. There are even lounges that have spas and showers that allow for a quick refresh after long travel days or in between your flights. We've saved a ton of money with Priority Pass by not having to purchase food in the airport before or in between our flights, and it's just a great way to kick back and relax. So join Priority Pass today. It's really affordable, and there are over 1,000 lounges in 500 cities across 130 countries. Check out passportjoy.com/pass. Again, passportjoy.com/pass to find out other membership benefits of Priority Pass. Our other tips and tools we use can be found at passportjoy.com/tools.
Questions and answers. Again, if you have any questions, send them in, matt@passportjoy.com or on any of the socials, and we will attempt to answer them the best that we can. First question comes from Mandy from Indianapolis. Asked, do you have a favorite type of accommodation? It looks like you have done a lot of Airbnbs. How do you decide where you will stay? Are there certain criteria, or is it mostly price driven? Favorite accommodation? I think Airbnb is probably hands down. We've done a ton of those. We've had the most luck with those. We've had a couple of not so great situations, but we've had a chance to. We usually, even if they're not great, there's a way to overcome it rather quickly, and that's what makes them so great. And the reviews, everything about Airbnb is. I mean, it's amazing what there is out here to see based on, especially staying with people. We do like having our own place from time to time because we just need that personal time when we're not staying with somebody. But also staying with people can be tremendous because you're right in the culture right away, and they give you the good hosts, and that's a good part of it too, is finding the hosts that will give you some of their time, because some hosts act like they'll give you their time, but when you show up there, they basically hand you the key and go away. We don't like people in our business, but we do like people around enough that we can ask really safety points. Where can we go in town that's nice? What cafes are good? Do you know people in town? And then start to make connections really quickly that they can line us up with to maybe take advantage of some of those local events or local things that a typical traveler can't do. So yeah, Airbnbs are amazing. And then how do we decide where we are going to stay? We typically look at the regions. We know the regions and the hot spots. Nikki does a great job at looking at things that we will probably like to do or want to do. And then from there, we understand what towns or regions of towns that we want to stay in. And then you begin, as you cycle through the Airbnb reviews, based on the comments, you can tell if somebody says, yeah, it's only a 10-minute ride from XYZ, you know that XYZ is a cool spot. So then you start to say, okay, is 10 minutes too long? Should we try to get closer? Are there cheaper things closer? And then as you break down the list and see the reviews and compare it with the cost, that's how we typically make our decision to understand where we want to stay in those areas. I guess Airbnbs are amazing, but we've used points for hotels 3 or 4 times in the travels. And I gotta say, that is the bomb, to stay at a really nice hotel after maybe a period of going through hostels and low budget stays, and you get a one-nighter in a hotel with a huge room and amazing hot shower, awesome Wi-Fi. Those, you can't pass those up. So we've used points a couple of times for a hotel stay. Marriott is typically, or the Starwoods are the ones that we use for that. And it's been some epic stays there, just because it's just, when you haven't done it in a while and you get a chance to do it, it's really nice.
Yeah, I'm typically the person that'll look at the Airbnbs, and Matt will look at them too, but I scout them out, and I do have criteria. Like he said, people do not lie on those reviews. They will find the most minute flaw in someone's home, and they will gripe about it on a review. And so I start at the reviews and I work my way from there, but I use the filter function on Airbnb, and
first and foremost, I look for Wi-Fi. And then if I know it's a place we're going to stay for an extended period of time, I make sure the place has a kitchen or a shared kitchen if we're going to have a shared accommodation that I can at least cook food. Because after, if you're staying somewhere for a month or so, if you're eating out every single day, first, it's not healthy. And second, it can really add up. So those are the two big filters. And then sometimes if I research the area that I'm going to and it doesn't have many places where you can do laundry, I'll put the filter on there for a washer. I don't really care about a dryer because everywhere we go, since we're following the sun, you can always line dry our clothes outside. But those are really the three filters that I look for. And then I read the reviews and I just make sure that people basically say that the place is not dirty. But those things are really, really important to me. And like Matt said, having a host that isn't really in your business, but is just around to answer general questions is a very important thing, because when you're traveling the world and you're going to places that you don't know, it's just really nice to get pointers from people. And it really does help out for someone just to tell you, hey, this is a great restaurant to go to, or, you might not want to go around that area at night, or yes, this whole entire place is safe despite what people may tell you. So getting that insight is really helpful.
Excellent. Okay, next question comes from Vince from Chattanooga. It's a great city. Asked, are you guys going to write a book? Seems like it would be an easy idea to sell. We've gotten this question a few times from our old friends and coworkers and stuff. I'm working on some other creative ideas. Not necessarily a book per se, but if that happens, I guess we'll see in the future. Nick?
I personally really do want to write a book. As I go along, I write down ideas for my book, kind of like taking notes. But the idea that I have for my book is sort of like a funny collection of personal and observational essays, and just sharing stories from my childhood and my travel experiences with Matt that basically have shaped who I am. So it's not like in the works per se right now, but I am taking notes to hopefully one day, maybe in a year or two from now, start working on that. But right now, my focus is on, our podcast and on passportjoy.com.
Sweet. Did not know that. I'm going to have to find this notebook. And I take I have like not a daily diary, but I write down a lot of notes too, in the hope that I could share with my nephews and nieces in the future. Chris from Chicago, nice, asked, what has been the most disappointing location anywhere that did not live up to your expectations? I hate these negative questions because we get this from time to time, because you just don't want to bash on anybody or any place or anything, but it's because it's kind of brutal. But there was one location that did not live up, and a lot of things to it. When you go traveling, there's so many elements that have to come into play. I mean, that are out of, no matter where you go. That's another thing that's really cool about traveling, is you're going to have a different experience than everybody else all the time. Like we met this girl in India once at a hostel. She was having the worst time ever. And she only been there for like 3 days. And we cannot believe how negative she was being, when we had been in India for almost 7 weeks at that point, and we were loving it. And she was so it showed us at that time that, man, perception's everything. Not everybody's on the same page all the time. Everybody has their own unique experience, and weather plays a big part of that. Time of the season, crazy events that might occur. All that said, Ushuaia, Argentina is mine and probably both of ours spot. It's part of Patagonia, way down. It's about as close as you can get to Antarctica. But we just did not vibe with that place at all. Here, Nick, go ahead.
So the reason being is we knew prior to going here that it was going to be one of the cold places that we went. So we came prepared. We have our coats, we have our hats, scarves, whatnot. But despite the cold, you have to understand Ushuaia has something like 140 plus days of rain every single year. It was just miserable. I mean, it was rainy, overcast, fog, cold, like you could not get warm. And we thought, okay, that's okay. We'll just go outside and we'll walk around anyways. And
we went to this amazing nature park that was awesome on the water. Dolphins were jumping. It was very cool. Saw a crazy woodpecker thing. And yeah, there was a lot although that was crazy expensive, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it's cold, it's rainy, and the place is not flat. So you have to continually walk up hills, and everything seems close, but it's very far away. And it's not like there's Uber or taxi cabs readily available. So you basically have to walk on foot everywhere. You know, we like doing that, but not when you're soaking wet and you're cold. And in addition to that, everything is uber expensive. And I mean, no exaggeration, like hotel rooms are minimum $200 a night. And, you know, just going out and just repeatedly being in that situation of, I mean, we were going to dinner and it was like $50 every time we went. We were just getting pizzas, and it was just, the situation just wasn't what we thought. It was just a budget killer for us. And we weren't even able to enjoy nature without being wet and cold. And I mean, I can handle the cold since I knew I was going to be in the cold, but when I was cold and wet and the rain just didn't let up, it was just disappointing. Prior to going there, I was thinking Patagonia and all these snow-capped mountains and seeing deer and moose and all this wildlife, like walking around. And I saw very minimal wildlife. I saw lots of birds, and maybe it was because it was constantly raining, but yeah, it was just kind of a buzzkill for me.
We hate, again, Argentina is amazing. We've been to Buenos Aires and loved it, but it was just it's just a bad vibe, and it might have caught us in a bad time. But in our accommodation, it was kind of funky as well. We stayed with the family. We loved the family. They were so kind, but it was 2 parents and 4 kids. And one was a baby that cried all the time. So that's another risk in an Airbnb. We talked about that earlier, that if you do shared living, there could be a child or pets, because I think they also had a dog that barked a lot. So we weren't sleeping well. It was raining all day. I don't think they had any Wi-Fi, barely. It was an extreme situation. So we always hate complaining, because we have this amazing life and everything that we're getting an opportunity to live through. But that was the one that pretty much sticks out to both of us. So watch for that. But that's it. So thanks again for those questions. We will do our best to answer them when you write them in. Again, matt@passportjoy.com or on the socials, and we will put them in the queue and answer them on our next episode. Thanks. Okay. We really hope you enjoyed that episode and you got a lot of value out of it. As always, please visit the show notes at passportjoy.com. Under the podcast tab, you'll see all of our podcasts there, and you can get the show notes from each episode that'll give you the links that you need to get all the information that we discussed. It's an easy way to discover everything that we're talking about. Also, while you're there, sign up for the newsletter. We have a weekly newsletter that goes out that has additional information about our travels, where we're going, where we currently are, and it keeps you up to date. It's informative, and a lot of people seem to like that. So please sign up for that as well. And on the podcast, please subscribe. And as always, if you can review the podcast on iTunes, this helps us out a great deal to boost our name out in the travel world for podcasting. But it's also just a great way for us to continue to let other travelers find and discover our content, so that maybe help them if they're thinking about going to Vietnam or one of the places that we've talked about in recent episodes. Okay. So thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you have a great week. And as always, safe travels.